Hello, my friends. Subscribe and like.
BF demanded a paternity test for our newborn, even though baby looks exactly like him when test proved he was the father he wanted to celebrate. Well, I couldn't stop crying. Just a few months after giving birth, Rachel was still adjusting to the whirlwind of new motherhood, sleepless nights, round-the-clock feedings, and figuring out how to take care of her little boy, Eli. He was her everything, her pride and joy. Though it was exhausting, she found moments of peace and even happiness in the chaos. She had been in a relationship with Derek for over 3 years, and he was the first man she had truly loved. They'd been through ups and downs, sure, but she believed they were stronger for it. Especially now, as new parents, they seemed to be thriving as a team. Derek had cried when Eli was born. He helped change diapers, woke up for night feedings, and even discovered that bouncing on an exercise ball calmed the baby down during those 3 a.m. meltdowns. He seemed like the perfect, supportive partner, until one evening shattered everything. Rachel was in the kitchen, putting away dishes during one of those rare, peaceful moments when Eli was napping. Derek walked in from work and, out of nowhere, said it. "I think we should get a paternity test." Rachel froze. At first, she laughed, assuming it was a terrible joke. But Derek's face was serious. Completely serious. Her heart dropped. It made no sense. Their son looked just like him, from the dimple on his chin to the little cowlick in his hair. Even Derek's own mother had commented on how uncanny the resemblance was. The baby was practically a clone, and yet, here was the man she loved, questioning whether the child was even his. Rachel felt like she had been sucker-punched. Derek claimed he just needed to be sure, insisting it was nothing personal. But to her, it felt like the most personal betrayal possible. Rachel stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to make sense of Derek's demand. The words replayed in her head like an echo. I just need to be sure. Sure of what? That she hadn't betrayed him? That their son, the baby she had carried for 9 grueling months, was really his? What made it even worse was that everyone could see how much little Eli resembled Derek. It wasn't just her biased opinion as a mother. Even Derek's own mom, Linda, had said it the first time she held him. "He looks just like you did." She'd smiled, flipping through old baby photos on her phone, pointing out the identical nose, the same eyes, the signature chin dimple, and even the stubborn little swirl of hair at the back of his head. To Rachel, that moment had felt like a seal of belonging, a tender acknowledgement from Derek's family that Eli was one of them, that she was part of them too. And now this? Now Derek was throwing all of that into question, disregarding the bond they had built, the pregnancy they had navigated together, and the child that looked like his mirror image. It wasn't about the test. It was about what the test implied. She felt violated, like someone had reached inside her chest and crushed her heart. After everything they'd been through, the morning sickness, the prenatal appointments, the hours of labor with Derek holding her hand. This was how he repaid her? With suspicion? Rachel wasn't just hurt. She was humiliated, betrayed, and most of all, alone in a moment that should have been filled with trust. As Rachel sat on the edge of the bed that night, her heart still aching from Derek's request, memories started resurfacing. Little things, comments he'd made in the past that she had brushed off as harmless jokes. There was that one time her old co-worker, James, had texted her a simple happy birthday. Derek had seen the message and, with a half-smile, asked, "Oh, should I be worried? Is this your office boyfriend?" Rachel had laughed it off. She told herself he was just being playful, that he trusted her. But now, looking back, it didn't feel so playful anymore. Another time, she'd mentioned grabbing coffee with a group of people from work, men and women both, and he had casually asked, "You're not sitting next to any guys, right?" She had ignored the discomfort, choosing peace over confrontation. She chalked it up to harmless jealousy, not realizing those little remarks were warning signs, hints at an insecurity simmering just beneath the surface. Despite it all, Rachel had gone out of her way to reassure him, always. She shared her location with him for safety during late commutes. Her phone had no passcode. Her social media was open. She never gave him a reason to doubt her. She thought she was building trust. But now she saw the truth. She had been defending herself from suspicion that had always been there, quietly lurking, waiting for a trigger. And the worst part? He had nothing to base this test request on. No strange messages. No suspicious behavior. No distance. Just a gut feeling born from insecurity and fear, not facts. Rachel realized with growing sadness that Derek hadn't asked for the test because of anything she had done. He had asked because of the stories he'd heard, the warnings he'd consumed, the what-ifs planted in his head by strangers, and fears he never voiced. And now those fears were tearing apart the one thing Rachel had always believed was solid: their trust. Derek stood firm, repeating the same line like a shield. "It's not personal. I just need to be 100% sure." But how could it not be personal? To Rachel, those words were a slap in the face, cold and clinical, as if this wasn't about their child or their relationship, but some legal transaction. She tried to find the strength to argue, to make him see how deeply it cut, but all she could feel was a rising numbness. Her voice, once full of love and warmth when she spoke to him, was now hollow when she finally replied. "Fine, we'll do the test." Outwardly, she looked calm. Inwardly, something in her snapped. She didn't scream. She didn't cry in front of him again. She just nodded. And then, quietly, carefully, she began to disappear. That night, while Derek laughed at a sitcom on TV like nothing had happened, Rachel was sitting in the bathroom with her phone in hand, researching DNA test options, comparing court-admissible labs and home kits, reading forums on how to prepare emotionally for betrayal. At the same time, another browser tab was open. Apartments for rent, short-term lease available. Family law attorneys near me. How to calculate child support payments. Rachel realized that this man no longer saw her as a partner, but as a potential liar, someone he needed to verify. So now, she would protect herself, not out of pettiness, but out of survival. She had always imagined their son growing up in a home filled with love, with both parents under one roof. But now, she couldn't ignore what this request revealed. Derek didn't trust her. Not enough. Maybe not ever. And Rachel knew then, if the results confirmed what she already knew, that Derek was indeed Eli's father, it wouldn't bring them closer. It would be the moment she walked away. Not because of the test itself, but because love without trust is just a performance. And Rachel was done pretending. Rachel didn't make any dramatic exits. No screaming matches, no packed bags at the door. Instead, she slipped into silent survival mode. The moment she agreed to the paternity test, a switch flipped inside her. She no longer saw Derek as her partner. She saw him as someone she had to plan around, not with. She started small, subtle, almost invisible steps. Every time her maternity leave payments came in, she siphoned off a portion into a new savings account Derek didn't know about. It wasn't much, but enough to feel like a lifeline. A just-in-case fund that slowly began to look more like a get-out fund. Late at night, when Eli was finally asleep and Derek was snoring peacefully beside her, the same man who thought she might have carried another man's child, Rachel would scroll through rental listings. She wasn't being impulsive. She was being strategic. She bookmarked modest one-bedroom apartments near her mom's house and ran the numbers over and over in her head. Rent, utilities, groceries, daycare. Could she do this alone? The answer didn't come easily, but it came. She started documenting everything, just in case things went south. Screenshots of text messages, notes about conversations, photos of Derek with the baby, for court if it came to that. She didn't believe Derek would try to take Eli from her, but the trust was already broken. Why risk it? And through all this, she kept up appearances. When Derek offered to order dinner, she smiled. When he made small talk about Eli's milestones, she nodded. When her mom called to check in, she said everything was fine. Because Rachel knew one thing. If she told anyone what was really happening, there'd be no going back. Her brother, fiercely protective, would want to confront Derek. Her best friend, who never liked Derek in the first place, would say, "I told you so." And her mother? Her mother would never forgive him, especially knowing what Rachel had gone through as a child. A front-row seat to her father's betrayal and the way it tore their family apart. So Rachel kept quiet, not because it didn't hurt, but because she was preparing to leave in peace, not chaos. And until then, she played the role, the loving girlfriend, the devoted new mom, the woman who seemed fine. But beneath the surface, she was laying bricks, building her own escape, one step at a time. Rachel had hoped, naively perhaps, that the issue would stay between her and Derek. But within days of his paternity test request, the cracks began to widen, not just between them, but through his entire family. Derek, it turned out, had confided in his cousin, likely trying to justify his decision. But instead of keeping it private, the cousin told his wife, and from there, it spread like wildfire. Within a week, Rachel had become the subject of speculation in Derek's extended family group chats, the one she wasn't included in. Whispered doubts about Eli's paternity swirled through the digital grapevine, and she didn't even know about it, until Derek's sister reached out, awkward and apologetic. Rachel felt humiliated all over again. It wasn't just Derek who questioned her now. It was his entire circle, people who had smiled at her during holidays, held her baby, toasted her pregnancy. People who were now wondering if she'd cheated. And yet, the unexpected hero in all this was Linda, Derek's mother. Linda, who had once proudly said Eli looked just like Derek did as a baby, took matters into her own hands. She found old baby photos of Derek, grainy, faded snapshots of him at just a few weeks old, and placed them side by side with pictures of Eli. Then she posted the comparison in the family group chat with a simple caption. "Look at these old photos I found of Derek." At first, family members responded with casual comments. "Ah, so cute. I forgot how chubby he was. He looks the same even now." Then Linda added, almost as an afterthought, "Actually, the one on the right is my grandson. The other is Derek." Silence. One by one, relatives replied in disbelief. "No way. Wait, seriously? They look identical. This baby is Derek." The gossip died right then and there. It wasn't just that the resemblance was strong. It was uncanny. People had literally mistaken photos of Eli for Derek. Some had even assumed the images were just taken in different lighting. Rachel didn't see the thread herself, but Linda told her about it privately and apologized. She said she was disappointed in her son and that she'd raised him to do better than this. Those words made Rachel cry more than the gossip ever could, because for once, someone from his side saw her pain and acknowledged it. It didn't undo the damage, but it gave her a sliver of peace. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't overreacting. She was being gaslit. And finally, someone else could see it too. After days of walking on eggshells, Rachel finally sat Derek down. Not as his partner, not as someone looking to reason or persuade, but as a woman who needed answers before she could decide whether to keep sharing a home with him. They met in the living room after putting Eli down for the night. She had arranged for her mom to watch the baby, just in case the conversation spiraled. The air between them was heavy, not hostile, just tired. Worn down. Rachel didn't waste time. "When exactly did you start doubting me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight behind it. "Was it something I did? Something someone said?" Derek hesitated. Then, with a deep sigh, he admitted the truth. It had started about a week before he asked for the paternity test. During a lunch break, he had stumbled across an article, a sensational story about a man who discovered, after 2 decades, that none of his 3 children were biologically his. That article had led him down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos and podcast episodes, all with flashy titles and provocative thumbnails. "Are you really the father? Men, protect yourselves. Get a paternity test. She'll lie, and you'll pay for it." At first, he said, he thought the content was extreme, even ridiculous. But the seed had been planted. The more he watched, the more he absorbed this narrative of paranoia, this toxic idea that men were being tricked and betrayed on a regular basis, that no one could be fully trusted, not even someone you loved. Rachel stared at him in disbelief as he explained, her throat tightening. "So you don't actually think I cheated?" she asked. He paused, a long telling pause. "No, I don't think you did, but I couldn't be 100% sure." And there it was, the gut punch. Not an accusation, but something worse, a quiet, gnawing doubt. A willingness to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was capable of something unforgivable. And that was enough for him to treat her like a suspect instead of a partner. To Derek, it was a logical move, a safety net. To Rachel, it was a betrayal of the deepest kind. She wasn't battling evidence or suspicions. She was fighting fear-fueled propaganda, the echo chamber of insecure strangers online who had convinced her partner to question her integrity, her loyalty, and the child she had brought into the world. This wasn't about reason. It was about fear disguised as logic, and Rachel had become its victim. Rachel didn't hold back anymore. Sitting across from Derek, she looked him dead in the eyes and told him exactly what his request had done to her. It shattered something she couldn't rebuild. "You don't understand what you've done," she said quietly, her voice trembling more from exhaustion than anger. "You think this was a small ask, a formality, but to me, it was a wrecking ball." She explained that this wasn't just about the test. It was about what the test represented. The implication, the accusation that she was the kind of woman who could lie, cheat, and manipulate someone into raising a child that wasn't his. That she could fake her entire pregnancy, allow him to support her emotionally, financially, physically, and do it all with a straight face. Derek blinked, confused. "I didn't mean it like that. I just needed to be sure." That made it worse. He didn't even grasp the gravity of what he'd done. Rachel felt a flash of disbelief, like she was talking to a stranger. "You needed to be sure? I've never once made you doubt me. Not once. And yet, you chose to trust some YouTube stranger over the woman who stood by you for 3 years." Then she dropped the bomb. "I was going to leave." Derek's face froze. She told him about the apartment searches, the hidden savings, the research into custody lawyers. She hadn't just considered it. She had planned it. His reaction wasn't concern. It was shock, not at his own behavior, but that she would consider leaving over something so small. Rachel stared at him, stunned. "You think accusing me of infidelity and lying about our child's paternity is small? Then what, exactly, would count as a big deal to you?" Derek tried to backpedal, said she was being extreme, overreacting, emotional, and that word cut like a knife, because it told her everything she needed to know. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about hormones. It wasn't about overreaction. It was about the complete collapse of trust. And the fact that Derek couldn't even see that he was more concerned with justifying himself than with understanding her pain, only confirmed that the man Rachel had loved might no longer exist in front of her. She didn't know what the next step was, but she knew one thing: you can't unbreak trust. 3 days after they went through with the test, the results arrived. Derek opened the envelope with shaky hands, sitting at the kitchen table like it was some dramatic moment from a courtroom TV show. Rachel stood across from him, arms folded, expression unreadable. He scanned the document, and then he exhaled, a full, chest-emptying breath of relief. "I'm the father," he said, smiling, almost laughing, like he had just cleared some giant obstacle. "We should celebrate or something. Order him, maybe." Rachel didn't say a word. Her eyes locked onto him, but not in gratitude or shared joy. She wasn't relieved. She wasn't surprised, because she had always known. What she felt in that moment wasn't happiness. It was grief. Grief over what had been lost. The sight of Derek finally relaxing, finally feeling safe around her again, didn't comfort her. It enraged her. His smile was a confirmation that he truly believed the baby might not be his. That deep down, he had doubted her. And now, because some sheet of paper told him what she had already known with every fiber of her being, he wanted to move on. As if everything that came before, the accusations, the silence, the cold nights, the paranoia, could be erased. But Rachel couldn't erase any of it. She left the room without saying a word, went straight to the bedroom, and quietly closed the door. And then she cried, not the loud, dramatic kind. It was quieter than that, more hollow, the kind of crying that made her feel like her heart had been scooped out and replaced with something cold and heavy. Derek followed her, confused. "Why are you upset? We should be happy. Now we know." Rachel turned toward him, eyes red, voice sharp. "No, you know, I always did." And in that single sentence, the chasm between them stretched wider. For Derek, the test brought clarity and comfort. For Rachel, It was a reminder, a brutal one, that his love came with conditions. Conditions she had never signed up for. Rachel gave a chance. She really did. After the test, after the crying, after the long silences, she agreed to couples therapy. Not because she wanted to save the relationship, necessarily, but because they had a child now. And if there was any path forward that could restore even a fraction of trust, she owed it to Eli to try. She also began individual therapy, needing someone who could help her sort through the wreckage inside her chest. The therapist didn't tell her she was overreacting like Derek had. Instead, she validated Rachel's pain, helped her see that her feelings weren't irrational. They were real. They were justified. For a brief moment, things looked like they might improve. In couples therapy, Derek said all the right things. He acknowledged that he'd hurt her. He promised to rebuild her trust. He swore he would do whatever it took to make things right. But then Rachel found out something that broke her all over again. Through a friend of Derek's sister, she learned that Derek had been telling people, even the couples therapist, that Rachel was mentally unstable, that she was suffering from postpartum issues and being overly emotional, that he was the patient one trying to hold the family together while she fell apart. When she confronted him, he denied it, then admitted it. But instead of apologizing, he justified it. "I wasn't trying to make you look bad," he said. "I just didn't want to sound like the villain." Rachel couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her mental health, the one thing she was trying so hard to protect, was being used as a scapegoat, a convenient narrative for Derek to preserve his image. And that was the final straw. She told him, calmly but firmly, that she was done. She would no longer live with someone who shattered her trust and then tried to frame her grief as instability. Derek didn't take it well. He begged. Then he got angry. Then he accused her of ruining their family over something that wasn't a big deal. But it was. It always had been. Rachel hired a lawyer, moved forward with custody proceedings. And even though the process was draining, emotionally, legally, financially, she knew it was the right decision. Because for the first time in weeks, she could breathe. To her surprise, Derek's mother, Linda, remained by her side. She came to visit the baby, brought groceries, texted Rachel to check in. And when Rachel confided in her about the custody case, Linda said something she never expected to hear. "If it ever comes down to it, I'll testify for you. My son made a mistake, a big one, and you didn't deserve any of this." Rachel cried when she heard that, not out of sadness, but relief. Finally, someone saw the truth. Today, she's still tired, still rebuilding, but she's no longer questioning her worth, no longer shrinking to keep someone else comfortable. She doesn't know exactly what the future looks like, but she knows one thing for sure. She is done fighting to be believed. Now, she's fighting for peace, for herself, and for Eli. She realized in that moment that this wasn't the end of the test. It was the beginning of the fallout.